Good night. Sweet dreams. That's what my dad would say to me. But sometimes I had trouble falling asleep. Then he would tell me stories about his travels. I want this tradition to live on. So now, let me share my stories with you. All the traffic lights switch to green at the same time. The synthetic call of a cuckoo sounds, and in the very next moment, I'm already swept along by the crowd that suddenly pours across Tokyo's most famous intersection, Shibuya Crossing. Almost without effort or choice, I follow the others across this wide crossing. It feels as if we are all part of a well-oiled machine that meshes effortlessly. 7 streets meet here, all of which can be crossed by pedestrians simultaneously in one traffic light interval. Although several thousand people weave around one another, everything proceeds in a very orderly fashion. It is strangely quiet. I merge completely into the shared moment with the others, with busy Japanese business people in smart suits, with girls and boys in school uniforms, and with astonished filming tourists. For a brief moment, we encounter one another, walk together for a short while, and then part ways again. Having reached the other side, I slow my pace. There's simply too much to see. In amazement, I walk through the bustling streets, which are surprisingly clean. It doesn't feel like a city at all, but rather like a gigantic, crazy living room or TV set, an unreal, almost dreamlike place that plays tricks on every sense of time and space. On the left and right, countless shops advertise with huge illuminated signs that, in the early morning hours, naturally lose some of their radiance, yet the garish effect nevertheless remains. A sign in bright red and yellow announces a 35% discount. A large Union Jack draws attention to a British pub, and red lanterns with Japanese characters adorn the mostly still closed restaurants. I let myself drift this way and that, along wide streets lined with enormous trees, and through small narrow alleyways where power lines hang low. From the 24-hour supermarkets, the so-called konbinis, all kinds of smells waft toward me. Spicy sweet, dark thick sauces, algae-like miso paste, and unfamiliar, mysterious aromas for which I simply have no words. And then there is the smell of Tokyo itself. The German director, Wim Wenders, describes it as strangely sweet, smoky, and damp. I inhale it deeply as I continue walking. In this vast city, it is easy to get lost. Subway stations and places are almost indistinguishable to the European eye and ear. Akasaka, Asakusa, Asagaya. Turn the wrong way a few times and you risk not finding your way back. It therefore borders on a miracle that after not too long, although I didn't pay particular attention to my route, I reach my next destination, Yoyogi Park. Like a huge green oasis not far from Shibuya, it stretches wide, right in the middle of the high-rises. I immediately notice how my eyes relax after the sensory overload of Tokyo's streets and let my gaze wander over the expansive lawns. Greedily, I absorb the delicate, fresh green. I walk beneath enormous old trees and feel their calm and quietly growing strength pass on to me a little as well. Magnificent ginkgos with elegant light green fan-shaped leaves, tall, proud oaks dressed in a tender spring green, and again trees I cannot name, with gnarled trunks, widely branching crowns, and delicate leaves. And in between, the highlight and why I am here. Blooming cherry trees. Not far from the entrance, there is a graceful grove where, although it is still early in the day, many Japanese have already spread out their blue picnic blankets, making it look as though small ponds were scattered across the meadow. The time of the cherry blossom, which usually lasts only a few days, is a special time in Japan. Hanami, blossom viewing, is practiced and celebrated extensively. Especially on weekends, the park becomes one large festival with food stalls, music, and people in the craziest of costumes. At the moment, by contrast, it is comparatively quiet, though a few meters ahead of me, a group of laughing young girls are already practicing the choreography of a dance. The exuberant, relaxed atmosphere rubs off on me as well. I lift my gaze upward and blink into the blue sky through the white-pink splendor of blossoms. The flowering branches of the trees spread out above us like a canopy. Sunlight sparkles through the delicate leaves which shimmer gently in a light breeze. In fact, no impressionist painter could have composed the image better. The black trunks with their clear dark lines stand in an appealing contrast to the white-pink sea of blossoms that looks as though they had been dabbed on with a fine brush. Measured against the mass of blossoms, the scent is not as overpowering as one might expect. Like a delicate hint, it hangs in the air with mild sweetness, restrained, yet promising. Filled with inner peace, I continue strolling through the park landscape, across picturesque wooden bridges, and past a blue-shimmering artificial lake, in whose center fountains splash, and on whose shore an old man meditates on a wooden bench. I enjoy the soothing rays of the spring sun, whose warmth spreads throughout my entire body. At last, nature is awakening again from its winter sleep. At last, life can begin again. And with what splendor! I stride through one of the enormous wooden Meiji gates. With its 2 pillars and the 2 curved beams resting on top, it looks like a large Japanese character. The upper beam is adorned with 3 stylized golden chrysanthemum blossoms, the seal of the former Meiji emperor. From this gate, a wide, straight path leads me for 10 minutes through a forest in which up to 10,000 trees grow. As always in old forests, I feel an uncanny reverence for these ancient, mysterious beings, so firmly rooted in the ground and yet striving high into the sky. 100 years ago, they were donated by citizens from all over Japan in honor of the emperor who moved the capital to Tokyo at that time. Also dedicated to him and his wife, Empress Shoken, was a Shinto shrine, the so-called Meiji Shrine. And that is where I head now. The shrine, too, is flanked on the left and right by 2 enormous round trees that guard it like 2 silent green sentinels. They rustle in the wind with an inner wisdom. In Shintoism, the forces of nature are especially venerated. With these trees, I find it easy to imagine that a deity dwells within them. The shrine seems to form a unity with the trees, perhaps because it is made in traditional Japanese architectural styles with dark cypress wood. Above it rises the deep gabled roof, its edges curved sharply upward. Over the years, the copper has acquired a greenish, icy gray patina. Slowly, I walk closer. Though I'm by no means alone on the grounds, it's neither hectic nor loud. What can be heard very clearly, however, is the chirping of birds and, now and then, the traditional clapping of hands by worshippers before they enter the shrine and devote themselves to prayer. They step only as far as a balustrade, for one may not proceed into the core of the temple, where a kind of wooden altar can be seen. I let my gaze wander up to the coffered ceiling. Reverently, I take in the details. The delicate, rectangular lanterns hanging from the eaves. Here, too, one repeatedly finds the white and gold decorations in the form of imperial chrysanthemums. I'm enchanted by the atmosphere of this place. I feel strangely sheltered and secure, even though everything appears so foreign at the same time. The shrine grounds also include an enchanted garden, in which hundreds of deep blue and purple irises bloom in July. Everything is very finely composed. Human planning and natural growth are in perfect harmony. Small winding paths lead past ponds in which the majestic trees are reflected. I sit down on a bench, overlooking the former tea house that the emperor had built for his wife. Unfortunately, it is no longer in use today, but on my bench, with my eyes closed, I let it come to life in my imagination. I see it clearly, how the emperor's guests, in their splendid, colorful kimonos, walk up the path to the tea house and squeeze through the small entrance, which is deliberately kept as low as possible so that guests practice humility and leave all hierarchies at the threshold. I imagine how they step into the modest interior, which is covered with tatami mats that feel pleasantly rough underfoot and give off a fine straw-like scent. The windows and doors consist of thin cedarwood slats covered with gossamer-thin Japanese paper that turns the sunlight from outside into a gentle glow. I see the tea master preparing the bright green matcha tea with a small wooden whisk and serving the foamy liquid to his guests, one by one, naturally turning the decorated, ornamental side of the tea bowl toward the guest. An ancient ritual with a finely tuned choreography of bows and courtesies, a tradition that is carefully preserved and has endured to this day. I can hardly believe that this is the same country when a little later I stroll through the colorful and garish streets of Shibuya in search of something to eat. Brightly colored ice cream parlors advertise with giant Hello Kitty ice cream cups. People in the wildest of manga costumes laugh and jostle toward me, and a woman holding a fluffy, chirping baby owl tries to lure me into her owl cafe. Whatever one wishes for in Tokyo, one will probably find it. I politely decline the bird, however, and decide on a restaurant on the top floor of a high-rise that serves specialties from all of Japan's prefectures. Japanese cuisine has so much more to offer than sushi. I try so-called takoyaki, small balls of batter filled with octopus. Even the small appetizer is elegantly composed. The takoyaki are perfectly arranged on a simple black stone board, sprinkled with finely sliced spring onions and fish flakes, and decorated with beautiful swirls of Japanese mayonnaise. After that, a steaming, fragrant bowl of ramen soup is placed on the table. The spicy broth tastes wonderfully of umami, alongside sweet, sour, bitter, and salty, a new flavor, of course discovered by a Japanese chemist. For a moment, I warm my hands on the blue and white decorated bowl with its narrow gold rim. Faced with so much aesthetic food culture, one can only bow. For dessert, I treat myself to a fluffy pancake with a scoop of matcha ice cream and gaze out over this unique megametropolis, which slowly awakens to a new life at dusk. When I step back out onto the street, the city is transformed. As soon as darkness descends over Tokyo, the city becomes an in-between world. The colorful, flashing skyscrapers and neon signs reach almost to the sky, making you feel as if you're under a large, luminous dome. The cherry trees, too, are illuminated at night. The small, delicate blossoms glow in enchanted shades of pale pink, lilac, and violet, as if one were wandering through a sugar-sweet wonderland. But even more impressive is nighttime in Tokyo. Already in my pajamas, I step up to the floor-to-ceiling glass window in my hotel room and let my gaze sweep over the panorama. Before me stretches a vast city without a true center. There is so much to discover here that one could almost despair, because you can experience only a tiny fraction of it all. A city of contrasts. Modern temples of consumption meet centuries-old tradition and spirituality. The streets brim with busyness and unlimited possibilities, and then, surprisingly, one finds peace and a sense of quiet security again. All these contrasts shape the city into a unique entity. I take a deep breath and enjoy the wide view. All these lights, houses and streets, all this life. But suddenly, a well-earned tiredness comes over me, and I slip into my silk sheets. The images of the day thread together as easily and effortlessly as the pedestrians at Shibuya Crossing. The blinking lights mingle with the yellow glowing eyes of an owl that serves me a grass-green tea. Petals drift through sunlight, and lanterns sway beneath temple eaves. Neon lights mingle with cherry tree blossoms. The owl's golden eyes shimmer again briefly in memory before dissolving into soft pink clouds. The threads weave together effortlessly. My body grows heavy. The lights blur. And before I can follow another thought to its end, I'm quietly overtaken by sleep.